Have you ever been called out where you knew you had a fight at the bike racks at the end of the day? Where you knew when you got to your bike that fuck was going to be there waiting for you?
Oh yeah. Oh, I knew when the guy that I had beef with, like I knew like, oh man, I'm going to be in construction and he's going to be in automotive, and that means that like if I go outside, he can just walk right over and fucking jump me. Like I had a problem with a guy that was like, I was 16 and he was 18, and
ooh, tough break.
It was a huge difference.
Yeah, that's a critical
This
years.
guy had a beard like
you didn't
Taylor.
say I'm 41 and he's 43.
I still can't grow the beard that 18-year-old man had when he shoved me against that fucking like car jack outdoors and threatened me. I can see his blue eyes this close to mine still, with him like, I'm gonna do this such and such and such and such if you such and such and such and such, and me being like, this is scary. Yeah. Like I'm a boy. I was so little.
I'm sorry. I think my USB thing isn't.
Yeah, that's the wrong mic. Maybe if you plug it into a different USB port.
I'm not sure you can hear.
Fuck. Yeah.
But yeah, I've talked about this before. I was riding my bike home, and a car pulled over off the street and blocked the sidewalk I was riding my bike on. There were 4 people in that car, and I think 3 of them could have beat me 1v1. Now what's my move? You know, and he did this thing where he stood over my front tire and held my handlebars. 1, I can't beat him normally. 2, how do I like wiggle backwards on my bicycle and get away from this guy who has that grip? It's a tough situation.
You need that scenario that you see in movies sometimes where you find a tougher older kid and you pay him off to come beat that guy's ass. God almighty, if I had known that, if there'd been like a 21-year-old dude that I could have given $250 and he would have solved that little problem that I had, oh, I'd have gotten jobs, and like my trajectory would be completely different today because of all the work experience I would have gotten at 16 to earn enough money to hire a 21-year-old to beat up my bully. Because I remember thinking like my options are hide, fight, and get beaten terribly, because that's what'll happen. Or like use a weapon. Like, am I going to hit this guy with a hammer? And even at 16, I'm like, what if I fucking kill him though? I don't know how to like. I was like, I gotta hit him hard enough with this hammer that like he goes away and the fight's over, but not so hard that he goes away and the fight's over.
We had a mini baseball bat in my house. It was like 16 inches long and heavy enough that if you hit someone, it would really, really hurt them. And I'm like, Woody, do you really think this makes you win a 1v4? They're going to hit you. You're just, in no time at all, you're going to hand them a club and morally justify them using it.
Let's hope they only hit me with that little bat.
I hope they're not kinky.
Yeah, you just gave them a fucking, anything's a dildo if you're mean enough. Like you don't want to deal with that. No, it sucks. There's nothing you can do, especially when you're in that gap, or if you're just a little kid. Like we're talking, I think at 18, maybe I could have done something to 20-year-old this guy, but 16 versus 18 is never going to happen. Maybe is right. Yeah, maybe
18
is right.
versus 20. Like at 18, I was still growing.
It's closer, but he's still killing me.
Yeah. That's what it would have been with me.
Yeah, I mean, it's the difference between a guy who's still like worrying about his gym shorts and a guy who's like working a full-time job and like lifting weights after work or something. This is not
a man versus a teenager. Yeah,
it was for a long time. Yeah, it's no good.
No, so the one time in school that I fought a really big guy, it was still a fair fight because he had gigantism, so his bones didn't really work.
Wait, so he had gigantism?
Yeah,
that wasn't an advantage in a fight?
No, it's basically you can have a gigantism and you can be a really big guy. He was one of those guys where it was like, this sounds bad, I'm not going to say his name, but anyone that went to school with me will know who I'm talking about.
Who knows among which gigantic?
There's only one giant in all of Scotland.
He had one of those like big foreheads where you could tell like something's wrong. He was fucking huge, right? He was massive, but he was like slow because he couldn't move right. He had like one of those. He had like one big shoe to like make up for like the length of his leg and all that. Basically, his body didn't grow right. Mm-hmm. And this was the thing is, I don't even know. It was such a stupid reason for the fight to fucking start. Right, my dad's a firefighter. Right, he's retired, long retired now. But we were in the queue in the cafeteria, and he just turns to me and he says, your dad's a firefighter, isn't he? And I went, aye. And then he just went, and now there's a children's TV show over here called Fireman Sam. Right, it's just a kid's show. He's a fireman. He goes around and fights fires, and it's for children, right? And he just goes, ha ha ha, Fireman Sam, right? And I don't know why, but I threw my bag off and just started hitting him, right? he's
By the way,
hitting me.
Taylor, this is a retarded man with gigantism he's wailing on.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't mentally retarded.
So
right?
high stakes.
You said he had a big forehead, and he clearly just made a child's joke.
No,
you retard.
He was physically retarded.
Would you describe him as a fat-headed retard?
Right. Mentally, he was all there. He knew what he was doing, right? He understood the situation, right? He was just very big and slow. He got a few punches in, and those punches fucking hurt, by the way, right? Those were like the first, but he got me right there on the cheekbone, and I was lying back on the table at this point because he used his size to just grab me and pin me down. He got a punch in at my face, and I was actually like, fuck off, man. Like, fucking, and that was when I managed to wriggle away and everything, and I was hitting him, and we were rolling around, and tables were going everywhere, and then it ended up, it got broke up, and I get taken up to like the rector's office. That's like a superintendent, and he ends up going like, why did you start hitting him? And I thought back going, I don't know. Like, I don't know why. I think he just caught me at like a really bad fucking moment or something, man. I have no fucking idea. But then they do the thing where they force you to shake hands, and then like that's the end of it, right? But I gave as good as I got, but he was like way bigger than me. My only advantage was he couldn't really move properly because he was a retard.
Well, I mean, it seems like your biggest advantage was surprise.
Yeah, it was.
Leapt on the.
Oh no! You see, when the bag gets thrown off, that's go time. Like that's he knew. He knew.
I remember
maybe you had some snacks in there for him.
I was young, call it like 11 years old or something, right? So it wasn't like deep into the fighting, and I was physically better than this kid, but he was like picking on me, and we weren't in school. We were like outside in grass in front of all the houses and everything, and he had a spitball for some reason. And he hit me with the spitball. And I was like, I can't just let that go, right? Like, I can't pretend this didn't. Everyone saw it or whatever. I get this guy in full mount, and I have him pinned down, not hitting him or anything. And he punches me in the ear, and it hurt. It didn't just hurt; it kind of burned. It was a special kind of hurt, and it rang, and I was like, oh, well, I guess ear punches are on the table, and I'm in full mount, right? So I give him like 1-2 and punch both his ears, and he starts crying. And I'm like, well, I guess I proved my point. The fight ended there. Just with two. I didn't hit him in the eyes. I didn't pop his nose. I just gave him 2 ear punches, and he's crying. And I'm like, why did you start this? But
how old was
he? Went down. He was my age too. We were both like 10.
I was really hoping you just said a number, and I was gonna say, oh yeah, that was last week.
That's the last Thursday before the show.
See, one of the greatest punches I ever threw in my entire life was immediately followed with one of the most embarrassing moments in my entire life. Right, it was like there was this nightclub that we used to go to like every single weekend, right? And it was kicking out time, and kicking out time is always the nervous time. That's when shit always happens. And there was 4 guys. This was happening like further down the street. There was like 4 guys beating the shit out of a friend of mine. So we all went like, what the fuck? And like we all ran down to help, right? So I'm running, I'm drunk as fuck though, right? But I'm immediate adrenaline, like, oh fucking here we go. So we're like, I'm sprinting down the street now. It's been raining. Right? It's been raining. I'm sprinting down the street, and I run, and it's like a full force, like I'm running at full pelt, and like the guy even turns around. Like, look at me, and I'm just like, boom, and he fucking spins, and everyone, it was like a fucking anime, right? Like, I hit him, and he fucking spins, right? It was the best punch I've ever thrown. Like, he was out, like he was snoring after that, right? I wouldn't have done that if it wasn't 4 of them versus like my one friend.
Sure.
That was fucked up, right? But it ended up, as soon as I done it, I slipped and fell right on my arse. And I'm running at full speed, so I'm just sliding down the street. I arrived at the fight and then immediately left on my arse, sliding down the street. But it rips my fucking jeans open, and my arse cheeks get shredded like the fucking bits, right? So I got up, And like the guys have like ran away because about like fucking 8 guys ran down to like fucking get these guys for beating up a friend, and fucking like everyone's like that looking at me, and I turned around and just went, "Is it bad?" And just everyone, all my friends, everyone outside the nightclub are all just laughing because the back part of my jeans is gone. Right, I now have just like assless chaps, except so my 2 arse cheeks are sticking out the jeans, and they're just bleeding like fuck with like stones stuck in them and shit from like when I slid down. And I had to fucking go home and everything. And the worst part was I had to sit in a taxi with like leather seats, but we had to like hide it from the taxi driver.
Yeah,
yeah, like that. So I'm sitting there just with like my bloody arse on these leather seats, and the guy, I'm like, anyway, thanks very much, pal, and like just getting out, just knowing he's got arse blood all over the back of his taxi, and he's not
sorry about
pick someone else up. So some poor people that night were sitting in my ass blood.
Man, that must have been such a roller coaster of emotions to feel that hardcore and badass, and then to be demonstrably humiliated in front of what I imagine is most of Scotland.
The Lord giveth
injury though. I've never like had an ass injury. I decided to get into one. Yes, you have. Both of you guys are ass injury veterans.